morning, everybody. Good morning everybody here as well. It's the first class in quite some time, so it's always nice to see some familiar faces and everything like that. Sometimes it's hard to see on the screen. I know you're looking at me, but hey, let's get ready for all this stuff too, right? Now, I did hear this is going to be recorded, so in case I mess up, do not take this for granted, okay? Disclaimer, right? No, I look like a financial tax person. I am not, okay? So just make sure that you do talk to those people as well, especially if you have like a 457 plan or, you know, an extra retirement account, IRA, anything like that. Make sure you talk with them, especially when it comes to taxes, okay? We all know taxes change every single year, so just make sure that you're doing that with them as well. But what we're mainly going to be talking about today is retirement, right? PERS, that's the main goal. That's what we all strive for. We want to make sure that we're going to be making our money so we can go to the beach, drink those Mai Tais all day and all night, right? So what we're going to be doing in this first section here is going over all the different types of retirement there is. A lot of times people think we only have one type of retirement. We actually have 3 different ones. For you guys here, it's going to be mainly 2 at this point. So the first one is the normal one called service retirement, right? That's where mainly the majority of us, when we get to that sweet life of retirement age, we're going to do that type of retirement. Now, in your guys' case, since you are safety, right? You do have the option for industrial disability retirement as well. What this is basically kind of like a extra perk for the safety members in particular, right? Something happens to you 1 month into starting a new job, you're going to be able to do that as well too. So we're going to go over a little bit more details about those, but first we're going to go over classic versus new. I know we hear this a lot. Classic people, you guys started well before January 1st, 2013, so you're probably at that 3% at 60, 3% at 50, you know, one of those formulas. That sounds familiar. So even if you did move or change employers before that time frame and it was no longer than 6 months, you're still going to retain that classic membership as well too. So if you plan on leaving your employer, it's been a little bit longer than 6 months, when you come back to that same employer, you're going to retain that classic membership. Now, in regards to the new people, like myself, right, we started after 2013. So in this case, they changed all the legislation laws. Formulas changed a little bit as well too. Had to do a little bit more work in regards to retirement, but we still get retirement, don't worry. So with this, when you have no prior membership, if there's a gap of greater than 6 months that you left your previous employer with that classic membership, aka say you go from Metro Fire and you go to a state job, right? You go work for the California library system, right? Since that 6 months is greater, and also you're leaving your kind of public agency employer to go to a state employer, you're going to change from a classic to a new membership. So if you have questions about that, if you're kind of worried if you're classic or new,
give us a call, schedule an appointment. We'll clear that all up for you as well too. But the main difference is just your formulas. And so kind of going back into the different types of retirement, you'll see here, right, with service retirement, the minimum age is 50 for the classic members. For the new members, it's 52. So, you know, two more years, not too bad. But with industrial disability, you'll see there's no age requirement and there's no years requirement, right? So that's the main perk of that industrial disability for you guys, is that you don't have to have the minimum 5 years needed for service retirement. You can be 2 years in, heaven forbid something happens on the job, right? Industrial disability can be available to you as well. We aren't really going to be covering industrial disability in here. If that is something that may apply to you, make sure that you schedule an appointment with us. There's a lot of legwork that goes into it, right? We've got to go over more details, more paperwork, medical history, all that as well too. So if you think that does apply to you, just make sure that you schedule an appointment, but we're mainly going to be focusing on the service retirement in this class today. So now the next steps, what do you want to do, right? It's important to know that if you're classic or new, what's the minimum age you can retire at, which is 50 or 52, what your formula is. Maybe you have a combination of formulas as well too. And that's what we're going to dive into next in this next section here. And then just kind of understand the differences between changing different CalPERS employers. CalPERS is pretty big. We have a lot of different employers that you can work for in that regards as well too. Now, before I hop into the next section, I just want to check to see if we have any questions at all. I know that's the easy stuff before we get too complicated. Okay. Saying no ayes or yays or nays. I'm going to go ahead and continue on. So now, I know it's early, math time. Okay, get your thinking caps on. So we're going to go over the retirement calculation because this is how CalPERS calculates your retirement. Unlike your 457 to 401ks, where it's based on how much money you have within the system, CalPERS runs by a formula base. So even after your money is run out, you still keep getting paid. It's a lifetime benefit, right? Now, the first piece is always the service credit. So the time that you're working for your CalPERS employer. The second piece is the benefit factor, AKA your formula, that 3% at 60, 2.5 at 55, 2.7 at 55, so on and so forth. The last piece is the final compensation. That's your pay rate, right? So now when we talk about each of those three things, when you're thinking about your retirement, as long as you're increasing all three of these pieces, you're increasing your pension. Maybe you've reached the max age for your formula, that's fine. You can still increase your years, increase your pay rate. But say you increase, your age and your pay rate's kind of capped out, it's not really going to be increasing too much more. You're still going to be increasing your time, but eventually it's going to reach a maximum, right? That's when you kind of want to, pull the plug and retire because you're working for free. And I doubt any of us want to do that, right? So let's first dive into the first piece here, the service credit. So now, service credit, working time, I know that gets confusing. Service credit's earned on the fiscal year basis, July 1st through June 30th, right? So even though we're all regular calendar people, when it comes to your service credit time, July 1st to June 30th. Now, if you're full-time and you're on a monthly basis, which I feel like most of us in here are monthly, once you work 10 months, so July 1st through May 1st, you've earned 1 year of service credit for that time, right? Can't earn more than that. Trust me, I wish we could too, but we're not. And so for my hourly people, in case you are hourly out there, then essentially we have 1720 hours. That's going to equal 1 year of service credit. So if you're not working 10 months, you're not working the 1720 for the hourly, you're essentially earning service credit, just not up to the 1.0 mark that you need for service credit as well. I'm going to show you an example of this, just so you can see. So you'll see this member here, right? They started at the very beginning, perfect cookie cutter employee. July 1st through May 1st, you'll see 0.1 for each of those months. So it's a 10th. For each month that you work, you're getting 0.1 for that year of service credit. Now you'll see May and June kind of become what I call dormant months. What's nice about that is that it's kind of like freebie months, right? So heaven forbid you get sick for like a whole month, or maybe you break your leg doing something and you're like, okay, I gotta be out for a little bit longer. You can make up that time in those dormant months so you can still get that full year of service credit as well too. Now to give you a more realistic example of that, it's kind of similar to me, right? I didn't start in the perfect fiscal year. So this member, they started on the 15th of November, and so they got 0.05 time for service credit. So what that means is May and June open up for this member because they haven't earned 1.000 years of service credit yet. So you'll see this member when they started, 0.750 for that fiscal year that they worked. So if you ever log into your account, and it kind of seems like 23.3857 just means that you started somewhere within that first year that you began your career with CalPERS. And so that's why you're never really going to have a perfect 23.000 years type of thing, right? But you can always strive for it. Some people want that 24-year mark or 25. It just gets a little bit more complicated, Now for any half-time people, so if you're not full-time at all, you're still going to be earning service credit. So kind of similar to that other member, right? They didn't start in the fiscal year, they got 0.05. For any part-time people, you're still earning service credit, just that 0.05 years of service credit each month that you pass by. So this member here, the maximum they can really earn is 0.600 years of service credit. So that's why I always say, if you're not seeing 1.0 for that fiscal year, you're probably just working just below that full-time rate that we need. Now on to the second piece of the pie, the benefit factor. This is what we're all kind of here for, right? All the different formulas. Now the benefit factor itself, it's already determined, right? It's based on the age that you retire at. So if you're calling us, talking about retirement, say you're 55 and a quarter, then we're going to be using 55.25 in that category, or 50.25, so on and so forth. You can't really change this benefit factor. You also can't change your retirement formula. That's all negotiated through the contracting, the unions, all that stuff as well. So I wish I could just go into that 3% at 60. That would be ideal, but I cannot. So we're going to go ahead and move on here. Now, when we're talking about birthday quarters, the 0.25, 0.5, so on and so forth, this is all based on your birthday. And a lot of times people think it's based on your anniversary date. It's not based on your anniversary date. It's based on your birthday. So if your birthday is March 10th, every 3 months is your quarter, right? So June 10th, that's your first quarter. September 10th, that's your half quarter. December 10th, that's your third quarter. Now for my other safety classic members out there, just remember 3% at 50, you don't have to worry about birthday quarters, okay? That's retirement ready. Let's go, baby, that's it. So don't worry about birthday quarters, you have 3% at 50, but the other formulas, which we're gonna take a look at, you'll see it's a little bit different. So 3% at 60, notice you're still eligible for retirement at 50, but we're only using 2%, right? So a lot of times people think that their formula dictates when they can retire. That's not true. So if you're 3% at 60, you can still retire at 50, it just won't be at 3%, right? But you'll see as each year goes by, each quarter that goes by, this percentage increases, right? So say you're getting ready, hey, no, I'm 58, I'm done. I can't climb these trees anymore, anything like that, I'm over. We're gonna be using 2.8% for that benefit factor for your calculation, right? Now, if you wanna go a little bit longer, maybe you got a little bit extra vacation time you can use to run out to some time and put you up another quarter, it'll go up a 0.25%, right? So up to you when you wanna make that date official, but part of our job as counselors is to squeeze out every penny we can for you, right? So if you call us and you're like, oh, hey, I'm ready to call it at May 1st. Hey, your birthday quarter is June 10th. Can we, finagle that a little bit, maybe get you a little bit extra for retirement, even if it only turns out to be $50 per month. Hey, $50 per month for lifetime, right? So it's always nice. I'm gonna look at one other formula here because I see they have a bountiful plenty of forms here for you. But you'll see still 2% at 50 for this formula here. But notice at 55, no more birthday quarters, right? So it's capped out, AKA you reached your max age for that formula. So that's a good place to be. I always say the ball's in your court at that point when you're ready to retire. You're still gonna be earning, a higher pension as well too, as long as you're increasing your service credit time and your pay rate, right? Because there's still two other factors. Now, the last formula I wanted to look at was this one here, 2.5, or actually for my new members, because I heard we have a little bit more work to do, right? You'll see 52 is our minimum age, but notice too, it's also only 1% versus 2% from our other colleagues. So we got a little bit more work to do. It's fine, it's all right. We're younger and more lively. We'll be around for quite some time, right? But just notice this one doesn't cap out until 67. So once you hit 67, then you've reached your max age for that 2% at 62 formula. All right, now the very last piece, the final compensation, AKA your pay rate. Now, when it comes to your compensation, this is pretty much you showing up to your job, doing all the things, right? You get paid, that's your final compensation. You get special compensation, you got some special skills, maybe you know how to kick the printer and print the right things, right? That could be special compensation. Now, Sarah's gonna be the handy person to tell you all about your payroll and all the things, because I heard she has all the brains about the numbers. So don't ask me, remember, not the financial guy, okay? Now, when it comes to the special compensation, let's take a look at that as well too. So I know there's a lot of different special compensation categories for people. Uniform pay, there's hazard pay, longevity pay, holiday pay, all those other things. Those are usually the common things we see from my end as counselors for special compensation. There might be some other skill sets, maybe some knowledge, abilities, other work conditions that may apply for that. Unfortunately, this is the bad news, I'm sorry, but overtime does not count, okay? So just make sure that if you are putting the overtime, bank that money for the holiday pay. The holidays are around the corner, right? So just know that's not going to be pensionable in your sense. It'll help us for the pocket and the immediate, but not for the pension itself. Now, in regards to the final compensation period, so what CalPERS does for this portion is we look at your highest 12 consecutive months or your highest 36 consecutive months, right? Now, when I say consecutive, if you're retiring today, okay, we're going to look 12 months back from today, right? So if you got a raise today, make sure you work 12 months into the future with that raise to use that for the calculation for retirement. But don't fret too much, because if you only work 6 months, we'll use the average, right? We'll have 6 months at your pay raise. We'll use 6 months of the former pay to get that average. I'll give you an example of that too. So on here, you'll see this member, November 1st, that's when they're retiring, right? In 2025. But their pay rate, we look at their 12 months from 2025, November 1st. So this member, they're making $4,400 per month for 6 months. They got a raise come May 1st to $4,600 per month. So that's another 6 months at that higher pay rate. Add those together to get $4,500 for the final compensation, right? Pretty straightforward. So if you get a raise, just make sure that you work 12 months. Now for the new people, or maybe if you start at a certain time during the legislation when they changed the rules, if for some reason you're under the 36-month final compensation, just know it's 3 years now, right? So I know when I get ready to retire at whatever age that is, hopefully it's 67, come on. But if not, then what I have to make sure that I remember when I get to that point is when I get my pay raise, I want to work 3 years so I can get that number used for my final compensation. But if I don't, it's okay. But you'll see this member here, right? For 1 year, they were making $4,300. The next year, they got a raise to 45. And the following year, they got 47. So do the same math, get 36 months, 162 divided by 36, get the same 4,500, but just a little bit more legwork. That's the main difference between the two. And if you aren't sure, maybe you have a combination of both, because I've seen that as well too. If you have both a 12-month and a 36-month, just know we'll do that calculation for you, known as a split calculation as well. This one doesn't apply to you, so don't worry about that slide. And neither does that one. Here we go. This is what I want. So to kind of show you that split calculation that I was talking about, say you do have multiple formulas, right? So this member, they have a 2% at 50 and also a 2.7 at 55 formula. So you'll see they have 20 years worth of that 2%. So 40% when we multiply those, we get their final compensation of 43.66. So for that portion of the time, they're making 17.46 for that time with that formula. Now with the other formula, they worked 5 years at 2.7%. So 13.5% for that portion, same pay rate, and it's 589. So we just add those together to get the the unmodified allowance amount for this member's retirement. Now, unmodified allowance, don't worry about that term. That's just one of the options. There's a lot of different options for retirement itself. We'll kind of go into that a little bit later as well too. So don't freak out too much about that. Now, the next steps, when it comes to your service credit, just know that it's based on a fiscal year basis, right? July 1st through June 30th. Know your retirement formula, whether that's multiple of them, 3% at 60, 3% at 55, 2.7 at 55, so on and so forth, right? And then also just know if you are a 12-month or 36-month. And if you don't know that information, that's what we're here for. That's what we as the counselors do for you. We pull up your account anytime you make an appointment. We'll look at your whole page, kind of give you the best of the best, right? Now I know I have some late attendees. Morning, guys. Do we have any questions about that section at all? No? All good? Any questions over here? No? All right.
Got a lot of people watching and not a lot of people asking questions.
Okay. They're just getting their coffee. It's all good. It's all fine.
A lot watching.
Now, like I was saying, we always want to squeeze out every penny we can for your retirement, right? So we're going to go over in this section here, different ways to increase your retirement benefit, which, sometimes can take a little bit of time, which is why the earlier you talk about retirement, the better it is for you. Because we always love seeing people that come in with only like 1 or 2 years in, and they're like, hey, just let me know, how do I get to that finish line, right? That's part of our job. So one of the things we always see is service credit. Sometimes people are missing service credit time. Maybe they worked for an employer, but they were temporary, seasonal, maybe it was like academy time, anything like that. You can buy that time back because essentially it's eligible time once you do become a member with PERS. So usually one of the, I would say, most common service credit purchases I see that come out is the redeposit withdrawn contributions. What that is essentially you did work for a CalPERS employer back in the day. You're probably like, hey, you know what? I'm only 25. I don't need retirement. It's all good. I'm going to take it out and go buy my house or do whatever you want with it, right? But then 5, 10, maybe 15 years later, you find yourself, oh, hey, I am working for a CalPERS employer now. I do want retirement. Dang, I wish I could get that time back. You can redeposit it, right? Now, I will say this will be a little bit pricey, right? Because it's money that you took out from a retirement system that could have been earning while it was there. So if you did take out, say, like the 20K back in the 90s, it'll probably be more than that if you try to pull it out in today's world, right? So just kind of know you can still get that time added on, which increases your service credit, which increases your retirement, right? The other one I usually see the most often is a service prior to membership. This is mainly like when people have a seasonal or temporary type of position. And so during those positions, I was similar to that. I was a student aide. I was working like 5 hours a week type of thing for CSU. Now, in total, like physical years, I was working like 4 years as a student aide, but in service credit time, it was only worked out to be about 6 months. But hey, that's 6 more months I don't have to work, right? So service prior to membership, that's for that time where you were working, but you weren't getting your contribution / service credit added on to your retirement. The other one, especially for safety members, I know that's usually popular. If you have military time that you did work, you'll want to buy that as soon as possible. This one I usually say is the most expensive type because it only gets more expensive as time goes by. So I like to give my friends loopholes when we do these in-person classes. When it comes to service credit purchase, especially for military, it's all based on your pay rate at the time that you put the request in. So that's why I always say the earlier, the better. It might seem a little daunting in the beginning. Don't worry. We have a lot of different options, I would say, for buying it back now in comparison to previous years. And other types of service credit purchase, I would say, is a leave of absence. So say you are gone longer than that 2 months, right? Maybe you didn't have any vacation time to supplement and get those service credit years. Once you pass that fiscal year, you can buy that time back as well too. Kind of similar to military service, just make sure you do it sooner than later, just because it's going to be based on the pay rate at that time as well. Now, in regards to service credit purchases itself, Publication 12 and publication 15, those are going to be the different types of publications for you to cover the different types of service credits available to you. The best way to do this is to go through our your MyCalPERS account, which I'll show you on the next slide. But if you just want kind of general information as well, just go to our main page, calpers.ca.gov, and you'll see all the publications and forms that we have on that pretty much front right side of the page there for you. Now, if you do log into your account and you're kind of thinking to yourself, maybe I did have some time I wanted to buy back, I'm going to kind of walk through a very basic version of doing that here, right? So this member, they log into their account, everything's good. They're going to go up here, click on the retirement tab, then click on service credit purchase. The other way you can do this is from the third blue box on your right side, you'll see make a service credit purchase as well too. Once you click on either of those, it'll take you to this next page of searching for a purchase option. And so depending on which type that you're looking at, it'll pull up all the different ones available to you. And so you'll just answer yes or no to those questions for those different types, right? And if you're kind of looking for kind of more information about that service credit, or if you're having some issues doing this process, give us a call, schedule an appointment. We'll walk you through step by step with it as well too. Now, once you do go through this process of figuring out which one that you're trying to purchase back, the next step is going to be saving the results there. So that way you can always access it at any time during your account. So if you're maybe busy and you're like, okay, I got 5 minutes, I can get it started, you can do that. It'll save for you and you can reference back to it when you get home. Now, once you do have your different available purchase options there, you'll see here, this person has a service provider membership as well as the redeposit. Like I was saying, very popular items there. You can select one, click on request the cost and just go through that process there. First, they're going to tell us if you have applied for retirement. If you've done it online, it'll pop up automatically for you that you have. But most of the time when we get people early enough, it's going to be a no for this question here. Next, you're going to go through the other steps for, especially for service provider membership, make sure you kind of have the dates. It can be a ballpark. That's totally fine. It doesn't have to be exact dates that you started or when you finished, anything like that. But just kind of have as close to the numbers / dates that you had, like hours per week, all that stuff as well. So it can give you an estimate. So this member here, they only have about 0.267, which is, over 2.5 months, essentially. It's going to cost them $491, not too bad. And then it's going to increase their pension $40.81. So $500 for a $40 a month increase, it's pretty good, right? I'm not saying it's always like this, but this is just an example. It could be like that for you as well too. Because the main purpose of this kind of like snapshot, I would say, is so you can kind of see like, all right, maybe this is worth buying back. And if not, don't worry about it. You can just let it go. Now, when it comes to service credit purchases, maybe you've already made some service credit purchases as well too. If you have purchased it well before January 1st, 2020, you're in what I call the grandfather time, right? So you can essentially continue making payments into retirement. You don't have to pay it off. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And the other option we have is called the actuarial equivalent reduction. So this option here, it's kind of like, hey, I have a balance, but I don't have, the extra 10K right now to pay it off. Give me this AER option where it foregoes the balance, increases your pension based on how many payments you've made so far up to that point of retirement. Now, if you haven't made any service credit purchases, unfortunately, they did change the rules a little bit. So any service credit purchase made after January 1st, 2020, you do have to pay that balance in full before you retire. So just make sure your winning lottery ticket is cashed out so you can do the same thing for your retirement. But if not, that's okay. Just kind of know that when you do submit your application for retirement, we're going to give you the payoff document. Essentially, it's going to have the different options available to you, whether you want to do the payoff, if you want to do like a rollover from like a 457 account or IRA, if you want to do the actual equivalent reduction as well too. And then you can even do, what's nice now is a partial payment towards the AER for the service credit purchases after 2020. So we'll increase your pension by X amount of dollars, depending on how much that partial payment is towards that AER as well too. When it comes to this stuff, that's where we step in, we help you, because each retirement, each service credit purchase, each situation is very different, right? There isn't really a cookie cutter service credit purchase for anybody's retirement. So everybody's different. If you talk to your friend like, oh yeah, it was only 500. Oh, mine was like 3,000. Very different scenarios. Maybe they have more time worked, maybe they made more payments, less payments, so on and so forth. So just give us a call. We'll help you out with all that as well. And that's why the important message at the bottom, never too early. Call us as soon as possible because we can start this process well ahead of time before you get to retirement as well. But once you do make a purchase, you'll kind of see some more details on your account when you do log in. You'll be able to see what the balance is, how many payments are remaining. If you want to pay it off early, well before retirement, you can do that as well. And then the next way to kind of increase your service credit going into retirement is sick leave time. I know you guys can't get sick. We're superheroes, right? We're fine. Sneezing is nothing. Me, I'd take it out. Okay, I can't do that. So I take my sick leave time. But I know a lot of safety members, you guys usually have a lot of sick leave time saved up. If that's the case, bank it, because CalPERS is going to use that for your calculation for retirement. We'll convert that into service credit hours, right? The easiest way to do that, if you like doing math, divide your hours by 2,000. That's going to tell you how much service credit time is going to be added on to your service credit already worked, right? So this member here, they have 656 hours. Divide that by 2,000, they're going to get an additional 3 months added on to their service credit, right? So maybe they worked 20.358 years. They're not going to have 20.6 because they're adding on additional time from their sick leave. Now, when it comes to like your vacation, CTL, PLP, whatever else kind of vernaculars there are for other leave balances, annual leave in particular, make sure you talk with Sarah, talk with Alicia, right, about maybe possibly using your time before you retire, burning it out, essentially. We like to call it the trial run of retirement as well. Sometimes people take their vacation like, oh yeah, I want to be at home all the time. And then they realize I do not want to be at home all the time. So then they go back to work, right? So if that is you, that's okay, don't worry. But just kind of know that with your vacation and all those other leave balances, we don't use that on our calculation. So just make sure you talk with your lovely HR people and work out what you want to do with that time. I know sometimes people even roll it over into their 457. That's another perk for you. Now, when it comes to your sick leave in particular, that does not change your age, right? It does not change your retirement date either. It just adds on service credit time. So a lot of times people think that, oh, I have 1,000 hours of sick leave, so I'm retiring June 1st. That means I retire in August. No, you're retiring June 1st. We're just adding on additional time with that sick leave. Now, in regards to the sick leave maximum or minimum, if you only have 40 hours, that's fine. We'll use it, right? Maybe it only works out to be like $1 extra per month, but hey, $1 extra per month for lifetime, right? So it works out. There is no maximum. Now your vacation, like I said before, annual leave, all those other balances, they do not get used. I just like to reiterate that a lot because a lot of times people understand what we say when it comes to leave balances. Now, in regards to your vacation time too, and using that, I know there is a note on there that says vacation time doesn't, convert into service credit. Technically, if you're burning your time, aka using it, you're staying on payroll, you're earning service credit, right? We just don't take that balance of vacation and add it on like sick leave. So that's one thing I just wanted to point out there. So when it comes to your service credit purchases, make sure you talk to us as soon as possible so we can go over the different types.
Just real quick.
Sure.
There's been a lot of misunderstanding on the sick leave
Mhm.
or the unused sick leave for service credit.
Yeah.
There is no max.
Mhm.
Because if you go in on the retirement calculator, it only lets you use 2,000.
That's true. Yes.
So people get confused and think that there's a max of
Mhm.
2,000. So I just want everyone to understand there is no max.
Yes, I'm going to reiterate that as well too, because that's a very important thing. I know on the calculator online, trust me, I was not a fan of that edit that they did for the online. That was not a thing we wanted, but they decided to put a maximum on there. I know it says like for me, I can only have a maximum of like 700 hours based on my work history so far. But just know that when it comes to retirement, there is no maximum. So thank you, Sarah, for pointing that out. Hopefully everybody else and online as well too. There's no maximum. Okay. All right. So let's go on to the next section here. Leaving your employer. I know I wouldn't want to leave an employer. Maybe you guys do, but that's your choice. You do what you want. But in this section here, we're going to go over the different options for you if you do happen to leave your employer. Maybe you're going out of state, right? Or something, life happens. You need to leave your employer. You have different options for doing that. Usually these are kind of like the main things, right? You can leave your contributions in, let it grow some interest. Maybe you come back 5, 10, 15 years later, right, to another CalPERS employer. You can establish reciprocity. We work with a lot of different retirement systems within California. So if you think you might be going from CalPERS to CalSTRS, or say Sacramento County or El Dorado County, those are all different retirement systems that CalPERS works with, which we'll go over more details about that as well. The other thing you can do is take an in-hand distribution, AKA refunding your account, right? You're just taking out the money, calling it a day. The other thing you can do is roll over your contributions as well. Go into your private 401k, 457, IRA account, whatever you want. But let's first hop into leaving your contributions in. One of the perks of doing that, right, is that you're keeping your time. You're just going from an active membership to inactive because you're no longer working for a CalPERS employer, right? The benefit of that is that's still going to grow interest. Yes, you're not increasing your service credit time, but you are still increasing your age. So if you have that 5 years minimum, maybe you find yourself like, hey, you know, I'm only 40 right now, but in 10 years, I'll be 50. I can start collecting a pension. You can do that, right? So the nice thing is that your money that you have within CalPERS will still be growing. It's not going to stay stagnant. So if you do want to wait a little bit of time, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, whatever, it'll still grow interest, and then you can withdraw the funds at that point as well too. Now, if you are eligible to retire for a monthly benefit, AKA you have the 5 years needed for vesting, make sure you talk to us first before you do any refunding or withdrawing any of that stuff as well. Because even if it's only $500 a month, if you're 50, you're going to live 40 years, might be more than that, you know, 10K that's grown, right? So the next one you have is that reciprocity. So like I was mentioning, CalPERS works with a lot of different retirement systems itself. So say you only have 4 years worked with CalPERS. You're like, yeah, I'm not going to work here anymore. I'm going to go to San Francisco, work for that retirement system. Perfect. You can establish reciprocity, aka kind of like link your accounts. So since you're not vested yet for retirement with CalPERS with the 4 years, say you work 10 years with San Francisco, then essentially you're vested with San Francisco for retirement, aka you're vested with us because you established reciprocity. Now, this system takes a little bit longer. It takes anywhere from 60 to 120 days, depending on the system that you're moving to for retirement. But it is one way to essentially collect your pension once you are age eligible for retirement, but not having to work for that one employer, right? So different loopholes for you. It's kind of nice. The only, I would say, limitations with reciprocity in particular is that once you do establish reciprocity, if you want to collect a pension check from both systems, make sure you retire from both systems. Sometimes what people will do is they'll retire from one, but not retire from the other. That'll break that reciprocity. So then you have to like go back to work for the other retirement system to get that 5-year vesting requirement, right? We'll help you with all that as well too. A great publication is publication 16, has a lot of helpful information about all the different retirement systems we work with. So if you think that might apply to you, make sure you reach out to us so we can go into more details about that as well. Next, we have the refund, withdrawal, take the in-hand distribution, right? Now, for most of us, I'm sure we're not retirement age eligible yet. I know I definitely am not. Young face, right? So when it comes to taking out your pension and contributions you have within CalPERS, just know Uncle Sam is going to want his cut, right? If you're taking it out before 59 and a half is the minimum retirement age, you're going to see some pretty steep tax withholdings from those withdrawals, I would say. The minimum is 20% for federal, an additional 2% for state. And if you're doing it before 59 and a half, another 10% on top of that 2.5% state. So it's like, you know, 30, 40% coming out before you even get the money in your pocket. So we usually don't recommend that, which is why we have this next option here, rollover. So if you do have a 401k, 457, IRA account, whatever it is, retirement, you can take those funds from CalPERS, put it over into that. Since you're reinvesting it back into yourself and your retirement, you don't get hit with those tax penalties, which is nice. If you think that might be something of particular interest to you, make sure you talk with that administrator first. There might be some forms you need to provide your HR people so they can do that. You might have to give it to CalPERS as well. So just kind of know if you are thinking about doing that, make sure you reach out to us so we can talk about your different options and make sure that you're not withdrawing funds when you might be vested for retirement as well. So those are all the different options for that section there. Any questions at all about the leaving your employer? We're all happy with Sac Metro. We're not leaving. Everything's good. I like it. Now, sad subject. I know, death, that's always on our brain. Two sure things, death and taxes, right? When it comes to CalPERS, we have a lot of different, I would say, options and things available to you. If there's ever any situations where health is on the line, something like, heaven forbid, is terminally ill, right? Make sure you reach out to us as soon as possible, just so we can go over those different options for not only you, but your loved ones, dependents, all the things as well, right? Now, most of the time, we're age eligible, we're ready for retirement, everything's good. But if we're not quite there yet. There's different things such as the payout of your contributions, sometimes tax-free as well, because unfortunately you passed away before retirement. And then also too, if you do have an eligible survivor, or if you have a spouse or a dependent, anything like that, where a monthly benefit could be paid out as well. Always different in everybody's situation. So if this is something that is going to be happening to you, just reach out to us as soon as possible, because every situation is very different in that regards. Now, when it comes to beneficiaries, this term gets used a lot for everything. Beneficiary is pretty much any person, heartbeat in a social, right? It can be a trust. It can be not busted a dog, unfortunately, because they don't have a social, but any corporation, your estate, pretty much it's just someone that you're leaving money behind to in the event that something happens to you, right? If you haven't gotten that established yet, make sure you kind of talk with your spouse, domestic partner, whoever it is. Maybe you want to talk to a lawyer, anything like that, to get a trust established just in case something does happen. Just always pre-planning, right, for the unknown. Now, when it comes to your beneficiaries itself, the easiest way, go through your MyCalPERS account. Make sure you have their socials, date of birth, address, full name, all that stuff, because you're going to need that to enter them into the system to add as a beneficiary for your account. So this makes it a lot easier through your MyCalPERS account. If you don't know how to do this on here, we can help you with that. We can also send you a form as well. You can just write all that information down. We'll upload it into the system for you automatically. Just kind of know this is a one-way road. Once you do add them in, you can't change it, unfortunately. So just when I say make sure you have their socials, address, and names, spell everything correctly. Make sure the numbers are correct as well too, because once it's in, it's in. We have to edit it after that point once it's already edited in, because if you try to add the same person in but change the number, they'll give you all types of error codes. You don't want that to happen. Now, in regards to when your beneficiaries do change due to automatic things, maybe right now you're not married, but 5 years down the road, you do get married, that's going to be an automatic revoke of whoever you had previously designated, right? Because California law, usually your domestic partner, your spouse, they're going to be first in line to receive any type of benefits, even if you named the kids previously, right? If there's ever a divorce or dissolution of a marriage, that's also another event that kind of revokes the old beneficiaries that you had. If you had a birth or adoption of a child, pretty rare once you get to retirement, but it does happen. And also too, if you do a refund, AKA withdraw your contributions, right? So if that happens, anything you had set up before, it's gone. So now, emergency retirements. I'm gonna put this down for a second. Emergency retirements, I've been doing a lot of these lately. And I would say that for you guys in particular, if something does happen on the job or heaven forbid your health takes a dive, we as CalPERS members, we kind of help you get to your retirement even in that situation, right? So we'll kind of process your application faster. We'll get documents done for you faster as well too. So if your life is on the line in any sense, reach out to us as soon as possible so we can get all that paperwork dialed in, ready to go, so people get benefits when you do pass, unfortunately, right? So this is, I would say I've been doing more of these lately than I have, just because health is a big thing. But if it does happen to you, just make sure you reach out to us, because we're here for you. It's never, good news when we have to take those phone calls, but if we have to go to the hospital to see you, we'll do it, right? That's what we're here for. Now, when it comes to the unfortunate death of yourself or either like your spouse, right? If they are the member for CalPERS, make sure that someone is at least reporting the death to us, just so that way we can get the payments and beneficiaries and survivors, whoever is on your list, right? The money that they need to process all the things, right? We all know funerals are super expensive these days. So any money we can provide to relieve that stress, that's our job. So whoever is going to be reporting the death to us, it doesn't have to be your immediate family or even your beneficiaries. It could be like, say your cousin down the street, or maybe just your neighbor type of thing. They're reporting. We're going to get all their information. We're going to pull up your account as a member, see who you had designated as your beneficiaries, get paperwork out to them so they can fill it out and get it to us so we can get money to them as soon as possible. If they don't have this information, it's okay, just as long as we at least have some type of way to find you as the member and pull up your account so we can get people paid out as well too. And pretty much we just find all of your next of kin, essentially, right? We start with the spouse, domestic partner, kids, parents, siblings, so on and so forth. Now, the other easy way, which is a new feature, which I kind of like, if you don't want to talk to us on the phone, maybe it's just awkward, or maybe there's too much going on, you can just go on our website, click on death, and you can submit a death report there. Very easy. Just make sure that you have all of your personal information, hopefully some of the information of the member as well too, so that way we can pull up their account and get paperwork out to people. I know it's a sad subject, but I'm going to ask if there's any questions about that. Okay, keep drinking your green juice. Okay. Now, power of attorney. This is always a nice thing to have and not need versus to need and not have, especially during the whole craziness of the pandemic and everything like that. What this power of attorney does is that it allows us to talk to someone about your account if you yourself can't talk to us about your account. So say you name your spouse or domestic partner, right? They call us, we don't see them set up as a power of attorney. We can't technically talk to them legally about your account. So that's why I always say it's better to have and not need versus need not have, because if you yourself can't talk to us about your account, who do you want us to talk to your account about with, right? And so what's nice about our form in particular, we've changed it a good amount of times, especially during that pandemic time. It can't be used for anything used outside of CalPERS. It's only for your retirement. Can't be used to sell the car, the house, any personal assets, anything like that. It's just for CalPERS. If you, unfortunately, you pass away, it's also revoked, right? We wait for the death report to come in. That way we get paperwork out to people as well. It can't be used for medical decisions as well. That's for the legal stuff, like when you have like a real power of attorney / trust or trustee. That's for like the medical decisions and everything. This is just for your CalPERS. Also can't really grant anyone access to your My CalPERS account. Trust me, I wish we could just give your spouse the passwords for things, but we can't do that. So just make sure that it's you kind of accessing your account, not them in that scenario. But the other kind of helpful things your power of attorney can do, even if it's not something serious, they can help update your address, update your taxes holdings, maybe even like submit some forms or updating beneficiaries. Maybe you made the mistake of doing the wrong social for that beneficiary. They can update that for you, no problem. But we're going to go through that form here. It's fairly simple. It's right on the homepage of calpers.ca.gov. It's just going to be called Special Power of Attorney. He's got copies printed up here, which is great. So if you want to do that after class today, I would be more than happy to take that back to HQ, get that set up for you as well. So we can definitely make that happen. But section 1 here, very easy, just going to be your information. You provide that to us. And then section 2 down here, this is where you're going to be naming the person that you want to act on your behalf in the event that something happens to you. If it's only one person, don't worry about these boxes up here for jointly, separately, or alternately. But if you're going to have more than one person, just make sure that you check one of these boxes to tell us what you're doing for that power of attorney. So if it's, say, like your spouse and kids, right, just as an example, do you want them to be all together to make a decision about your account in the event that something happens to you? Separately, either one of them can act on your behalf, or alternately, it's kind of like your lineup, 1, 2, 3, right? Who's first in line? Something happens to them. Number 2, you're now number 1, right? Now, the easiest way to change any of these power of attorney designations is just to resubmit a new form. Very easy. The next section here is you're going to be telling us what they can and cannot do as your power of attorney for your account, right? So are they allowed to choose a retirement option for you? Hopefully this power of attorney already knows what you're going to be doing for retirement, but if not, make sure you talk to them about that as well too. It's always good that they're aware of what you want for retirement. The next thing is, are they allowed to update or change the beneficiaries as well? So maybe you named the kids as beneficiaries. Is this power of attorney allowed to change that beneficiary? Maybe that beneficiary designated is like, oh, I know he named me, but I want, you know, their godson or whoever else to be the beneficiary. Can they do that, right? Now, if you have special instructions, just put it in that box, right? Make sure we know as well too. It's your retirement. Let us know what you want. The next one after that is section 4. This is when you want that power of attorney to go into effect effectively. So the first one, I would say, is usually the most common, but you can choose any option that you want. Durable power of attorney just means that it goes into effect immediately upon something happening to you, right? So heaven forbid, you know, we get hit by a car going home type of thing, or in a coma. That's your event, right? Your power of attorney can take control at that point. Limited power, this is usually like when people are going to like a major type of surgery. Sometimes they're not sure if they're going to make it out of that surgery. They can give us a date range of when, you know, the power of attorney can have power. And then lastly, the contingent springing. So this is where we get a written statement. Sometimes people put like treating physician as their, you know, written statement. Like the doctor says, hey, unfortunately, this person is incapacitated. Power of attorney now has power to do that. And like I was mentioning before in the previous slide, section 5 is all the legal stuff. So if you want some light reading, this tells you all the things that this form can't do. But like I was saying, no medical decisions, can't sell any personal property, all that as well. Now, section 6, this is the key one here. This is where you're going to sign it. If we're doing the forms here today, I'm a witness to see that you're sound of mind and everything like that. that you're naming whoever you're designating as your power of attorney. Now, if you want to do this form and say you're not here, you're virtual, right? You can have 2 people over the age of 18 witness your signature on that form. So it can be your colleagues or coworkers, whoever you want. It just can't be the people that you're naming as your power of attorney, right? It's conflict of interest. But underneath that, if you can't find 2 people to witness your signature, you can also get it notarized. Either or, it doesn't have to be both. So it can either be 2 witnesses or a notary. That's what I really like about this form, is that it kind of cuts down on, all the legalities for it. But once we do have that form, it'll take about anywhere from 30 to 60 days for that to be completed. So that's why I always say it's better to do it sooner than later, just so we have it on file, ready to go. You can change at any point as well too. Any questions about power of attorney at all? Good, see a lot of nodding heads. All right. Let's see, how are we doing on, oh, we're doing pretty good, okay. All right, online resources. So on here, we're kind of be going through all the wonders and fantastic things about CalPERS website. So on here, what's nice is you can find all the information about the investments, everything that's going on in the world of CalPERS as well too. If there's any like news articles, any reports going on within CalPERS, you can find that up here. The contact information is great because that has our main contact line, 888-CalPERS, very easy phone number, but 888-225-7377. And also our fax number as well. Yes, we still use fax. I know we're the state, we're old school. We like that stuff. It works. Sometimes it's better than mail because it gets there immediately, right? And also too, your smartphones are kind of like fax machines, so you can scan those documents, send it directly to us through that line as well. But so the about section, that's just mainly like our mission statements, all the things that we do. But the main bulk is going to be on this main page here. We always have like highlights for like the CB events, the virtual ones that's going to be happening in December and next year as well. But for most of us here, we're still active. So the active tabs is going to be kind of like our main bread and butter. It's going to have all the information we need as an active member with CalPERS. If you're looking for more kind of information about your retirement benefits or your health benefits as well too. But I was told earlier, talk with your HR about your health, okay? Because that's where they're going to have all the knowledge in that. And then heaven forbid, like we were talking about death benefits, right? So if you're looking for more information about that, it's on there. Eventually, and I'm sure for some of the people attending virtually on this class, is that the retirees tab. This is where we're going to have a lot of information available to you as a retiree, even if that's future. So you can kind of find out, different cost of living percentages that's been happening, how you update your taxes, especially working after retirement. If you're, retiring at 50, maybe you want to do some stuff after retirement. If it's non-CalPERS related, perfect. If it's CalPERS related, click on that, call us, let us know. We can help you with all those options as well. So below that, kind of like in the middle section of that page on the main page there is the I want to. There's kind of like some helpful quick links available there for that. If you want to attend a training event, that CB that I was talking about before, where we kind of go over more details about retirement, kind of like more options as well. If you want to update your beneficiaries, make some payments. The next, I would say, more helpful tab is the life events. That's when, life throws a curveball, is what I say. Something popped up. Oh, hey, maybe I have to leave the state. Maybe I, want to leave CalPERS, find different information about other employers, all that stuff. That's all in these life events tabs here. And if you don't see what you're looking for in the main, click on that view all. That'll pop up all the things available to you as well. Next, this is where I go almost every half an hour or hour of the day when I'm talking with people at the front counters. Forms and publications. Every form and publication we have available to you, you can access from our website. So like Dustin was talking about, we have the forms here physically on in person, but you can go to that power of attorney right on the homepage of CalPERS as well. Next, below that, at the very bottom, we have like news events. If you want to become super social, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the things. That way you're in the know all the time. What I like the most is our YouTube channel, because this whole class is on YouTube. So if you totally checked out mentally, you don't even know what's happening, just go on YouTube. You can check that out, get all the information you want. And it's all broken up into different sections. So you can kind of do it by your own pace as well. And this is where you'll see all the fun. Oh, we got a question.
Yeah.
What's we got?
We got a quick question.
Let's do it.
The question is, for those of us that are vested with 5 or more years and we
Mhm.
decide to leave prior to retirement age, but keep our money in PERS until retirement age, do we still get any portion of our retiree medical when we reach retirement age?
It's a no, short answer. Yeah, no. So when it comes to retaining your health benefits, especially like if you have 5 years, you're vested for retirement, aka your pension, but not your health benefits, right? So when it comes to retaining your health benefits, typically the normal is if you separate, say like today, right? As an example, you have 120 days to get your retirement paperwork into us to retain that health vesting. Now, I won't say loophole, but one way to retain those benefits is say you leave at 5 years, you're only age 40, but you come back to work at age like 55 for a CalPERS employer. Some different employers, right, depending on where you're going to and what the health vesting is required for that. Once you go from an inactive back to an active membership, then you can retire at that point with the amount of years that you have, right? So there's a lot of, it depends on that type of scenario, but that is one way to essentially get your health benefits back is by coming back to work after that time that you're separated. But with that question, if you only have 5 years and you wait, an additional 10 years to start collecting the pension, unfortunately, health benefits are gone. Yeah. Any other questions on there?
Yeah, actually, there's
Okay.
one just came in. Are the monthly incentives we receive as PEPRA members equate into our retirement income?
Say that one more time.
Do the monthly incentives we receive as PEPRA members equate into our retirement income?
That's a yes. Yeah, I wanted to make sure because PEPRA gets involved. The only difference I would say that's probably like a new member asking about the PEPRA. I'm in part of that category as well too. We're just a little bit limited, I would say, on our final compensation. So if you're making 200 grand a month, unfortunately not all that's going to be used for your pension, right? Because we have a cap on how much we can make. So if you think that involves you, I would say definitely schedule a one-on-one appointment with us so we can go into more details about your account specifically. But that is a good question. But short answer, yes, it'll be counted as well. The cap this year, I can't tell you off the top of my head. I have to look that up because it changes every year and it's going up. Yeah, it has steadily gone up. Yeah, because we're making more money and inflation and all the other things. Yeah, I'd have to look into that. I'll get back to you on that one as well too. The what? Yeah, the PEPRA cap. He was asking like, no, see, Dustin. No, see, there we go. Thank you, Dustin. He's getting close to the cap. That's why he knows. He's like, okay, don't get too much, So.
This might be a long question.
Yeah.
Someone like myself, I got hired at 24 years old.
Mhm.
I had seasonal time with CAL FIRE prior to that. And I'll serve 30 years plus more time to get to the age of 57. At the age of 57, it's if I made captain towards the end of my career and coming on that dollar amount, the sick leave, a curl added on the back won't benefit me because I'll hit the dollar cap amount potentially if I'm making that.
Potentially. Yeah.
Five full certification. It's going to be very hard for you to actually get that captain because your formula, unless you're getting 100% income. Even at 32 years of service, you're at like 86% of income replacement. So your dollar amount per year, you may be over the 161,000, but are you 20% over the 161,000? PERS, not overtime, but PERS overtime. And we're about $200 short right now. So if our COLAs continue to go up, as long as the rates don't continue to go up, and if you go become a PC, then you're probably going to be over the that. But right now, offset captain, longevity, 7.5% incentives, max, everything that you can get, education, bachelor's, you won't get it now. So you want a little bit of that. So if you credit on the back end, okay. So that's one outside is that.
So to follow up with the special compensation being reportable for PEPRA members, there are some exclusions. We have some that are not, so uniform allowance is not for PEPRA employees. Temporary upgrade pay is not PERSable for PEPRA employees. So there's a couple that Metro has that are not PERSable compensation for PEPRA.
Hopefully they got all that on there.
That looks fine.
Okay, say that all again, Sarah.
So going back to the question on PERSable compensation or the special compensation on what's PERSable for PEPRA employees, there are a couple that Metro Fire offers that are not PERSable for PEPRA employees, and that would be temporary upgrade pay uniform allowance, those are not PERSable for PEPRA employees.
Okay, perfect. Just make sure the sound got through. It's all good. To kind of go on your question there, what kind of Dustin was touching on a little bit is when I was talking about earlier about working for free, right? When you reach your maximum, because I have people that are there, they're still actively working. Give you an example. I have one member that has 48 years worked, okay? Now, you'll see with this formula, right? 50 is the minimum age, 5 years required, right? But you'll see in the very end, it's 60, so that's 3%. But once you start working X amount of years, you'll see when you have 40 years and you're age 60, you're done, right? You're still earning more, but you're paying money to show up to work, right? So that member I was kind of mentioning earlier, they're losing close to like $1,400 per month just by showing up to work. So, don't let that happen to you. I'll call you every day if I have to, okay? To be like, hey, let's make it official. Let's get out of here. Let's just go to the beach and hang out, okay? So that's what I mean by when you reach your cap on there. And Dustin's grabbing some stuff to upload to you guys online so you can see that too. But to show you where you can find all your different formulas as well, if you just go to the forms and publications and type in your formula, you'll see that little benefit factor chart that I was referring to earlier. So let me go back over. There we go. Good questions. Solid. Yeah. I know some of you are thinking 48 years, you crazy? I know. Okay. That won't be me. I promise. Now, the next thing that we're kind of reaching on, touching base on as well too, is the PERS login. That's going to be your main bread and butter for anything retirement related to your retirement specific as well. If you don't know your login, if you forgot your password you set up, X amount of years ago, trust me, I have too many passwords and usernames to keep track of. We'll help you reset all that as well too. But that's going to be where you access your PERS account on there on the main page. Once you log in, you'll see this very familiar page as well too, the 3 boxes. How much you're expected to make for retirement, how much of contributions you've made, plus the interest as well. So if you're thinking about refunding your account, aka withdrawing the funds, this is what you'll be subject to receiving before taxes, remember, before taxes. And then of course, how much time you have worked as well too. So this is kind of like your main page, but up here, we have a lot of helpful tabs to kind of direct you through your PERS and your retirement specific. So the main one here that I like to always point out is the My Account, the profile, your contact information, security settings. Maybe you did forget your password. You're like, okay, I never want that password again. You can reset it through here as well. But the main, I would say, important thing from the profile is we have your PERS ID available to you as well. So if you're providing us any forms, you don't want to give us your social, which it's more secure not to, use your PERS ID because that's what we use to identify you in our account. So if you don't know what your number is, we can provide it to you, but you can also access it through your PERS account as well. Next, after that, we want to make sure we have all of your up-to-date contact information as well. Any letters that we send you, we want to make sure it's actually getting to you. So just kind of like log in here every now and then if you have changed or moved addresses, make sure that's up to date on your account as well. I'm sure your lovely HR personnel will help you out with that as well too. The next, like I was talking about, too many usernames and passwords. If you do want to reset or change any of that, you'll do that on the security settings page from your profile. Now, like I was talking about before, I told Alicia this earlier, is that we have gone to like a more green / less waste type of initiative with PERS. So we did automatically put you into an online only type of like for your annual member statements, all that as well. If you do want to change that, just click on US mail for your mailing preferences, right? It's mainly because you can't lose an email, essentially. I mean, you can get too many emails, might get lost in there. But in regards to communication from us, we usually try to do digital to go directly to your PERS account. Now, what I like the best is a new improvement that we made is the message center. It's kind of like a digital counselor, right? If you have a random question, maybe you don't want to be on hold with the call center, maybe you don't have time to make an appointment with us, just send us a question through your PERS account. It'll go to the unit, go to what we call a subject matter expert to essentially look at your account, look at the question that you have. If it's super complex, kind of like this gentleman's question from earlier, maybe we'll have to make a phone call or schedule an appointment for that, or maybe they'll just reach out to Dustin since he knows all the things anyway. And essentially, once we have that information, we'll respond back to you. Usually within 5 business days, sometimes quicker, depending on the question, or maybe we're bored. There's not a lot of things going on that day. We'll get to you a lot quicker as well. But I kind of like this because it just kind of helps you get your question answered, but without having to waste your time as well too. So. Now, when it comes to the retirement tab, I go here every day, especially on the counters when I see people talk about retirement. The most helpful thing is going to be this retirement estimate calculator. We're going to go through that. If you're not familiar with doing this is very good. Just kind of gets you more familiar with how to run estimates, how much you're going to be making for retirement. That's always key, right? Because a lot of times people think like, oh, I just want to retire tomorrow. I'll get this much money. Well, it depends, right? Like, are you retiring on a birthday quarter? Do you have any beneficiaries? So on and so forth, anything like that. I will say that if you do have that industrial disability that we were talking about earlier, don't run an estimate through your MyCalPERS account, because industrial disability is a very different calculation as well, because it's all very dependent on how old you are. You know, when you're thinking about retiring, is there any leave balances until that time, anything like that? So just make sure that this form here, the retirement allowance estimate request, you can click on that link. It'll give you that form to essentially print out, provide us the information, send to us via mail or fax. And then essentially we'll do a number calculation for you for that industrial disability retirement. But if you're just doing a regular one, we can click on this orange button for start a new estimate. And so it'll pop up here, earliest retirement date. So this member, obviously this is in the past, it's an old slide, but don't worry about that. Essentially it's going to pop up if you are eligible for retirement that day when you log in, it'll give you that day, right? Because you can go when you want, when you're eligible. You become the most dangerous employee once retirement gets on your brain, right? But you can go by age. So if you're thinking about not going out until like 55 or 58 or anything like that, you can also do a specific date as well too. So if you're thinking about retiring on the day that you got your raise, but a year out or maybe 3 years out type of thing, you can do that as well. Just kind of know that for future calculations, I would say anything kind of beyond 2 or 3 years, there's a lot of X factors that'll change in between now and then, right? Maybe you'll get a raise, maybe you'll get a promotion, anything like that. So if those situations do change, these numbers will update as time goes by. But if you're looking for like 5 years out in the future, it'll get you in the ballpark, but it probably won't be completely accurate, right? Because there's a lot of different things going on. But once you get that information in, you'll hit continue. And like I was talking about, the system itself will always update, usually updates quarterly, I would say for the most part, unless it's the fiscal year, then things get very complicated and crazy. But your final compensation will take that highest 12-month or the highest 36-month for you. So you don't have to worry about doing the math. The computer and the system will do that for you automatically. If this number ever pops up blank, which I know sometimes it does for safety members in particular, because if you have a lot of, say, fluctuating special compensation that gets reported to us, sometimes the computer has a little bit of issues doing that. That's where we kind of step in as counselors. We can help you with that number crunching, or you can just submit that estimate request form and we'll do that for you as well. So don't freak out if it is blank. It's just the computer updating itself as time goes by. Next, you're going to tell us if it's going to be full-time or part-time, or for like that question from earlier, say they have the 5 years, but they're no longer going to be working, click on that not employed. So it'll freeze your service credit time. And then you can see like, okay, if I start withdrawing that 5 years at age 56, this is how much I'll be making. So this is a good tool for those individuals, I would say, trying to figure out how much they'll be making as a pension, not withdrawing it, and then waiting until later on as well too. But for most of us, we're full-time because we're committed. Next, like we were talking about the sick leave, and I know Sarah mentioned this earlier, when you click on yes here, it is going to pop up that maximum number. Don't worry about that. If you do have more than those hours, just type in the max. That's fine. It is an estimate at the end of the day, right? Estimate, not always accurate, but to the best of our abilities. Next on here is going to be survivor. So in regards to survivor, I know we touched on what a beneficiary is. Survivor is a set person, essentially, right? It's a benefit paid for by the employer as well too. I like to call it free money, but there's only certain people eligible for that. So first in line is always a spouse or registered domestic partner 1 year prior to your retirement date. Keyword 1 year. So if you got married yesterday, make sure you're established 1 year before you retire so they can get this benefit. If that doesn't get involved, any kids under 18, they're the next eligible survivor for that benefit. After them, any disabled children prior to the 18th birthday are eligible for that survivor continuance as well. Lastly, at the very bottom of the pack is any financially dependent parents. So if you're taking care of your parents financially, you want them as a survivor, you can do that, right? It doesn't typically happen with most retirees, I would say, because usually our parents are gone before we get to that point. But if they are still around and they may need financial help, this will help with that as well too. So if you do have an eligible survivor, you'll mark yes. If not, click on no. Next is going to be the beneficiaries, right? That we were talking based on. So if you do want to name the neighbor down the street or your cousin, whoever you want, whoever has the heartbeat in the social, you can name them as a beneficiary on this estimate. When you click on 2 or more, it's going to ask you if you want to do a dollar amount or percentage amount. Just let us know, how you want to calculate it. Most people do percentage because it's a little bit easier. It'll do the dollar amount for you automatically. But this member here, they're doing 1. So we'll click on 1 and hit continue. Make sure you have their date of birth, right? Because the computer is going to need that to essentially run that scenario for naming them as a lifetime beneficiary after you pass away. And then below this, I know it doesn't show here, but it gives you that also flexible beneficiary option. I like to call this the McDonald's option, not sponsored. I had it this morning. It's on my brain. So when it comes to these flexible beneficiary, this is a customized option. You can leave 3% or 38% or whatever you want percentage-wise to leave behind to your beneficiary. It'll do that scenario for you. So once you have all that information inputted, computer is going to do its job and give you all these different options, I would say, for retirement. Like I was mentioning before, that first one, that unmodified allowance, just kind of like the maximum amount for yourself. The one after that is the return of remaining contributions, which is, I like to call it the safety net option. It's a little bit less. You'll see this members goes from 4616 to 4556. But what this option does is that it allows them to leave a lump sum of their contributions behind if they pass away too soon, right? Typically, your contributions take anywhere from 9 to 13 years for that to reach 0. So what this option kind of does is that if you say heaven forbid pass away 4 years into retirement, there's still a solid amount of change in your contributions that could be paid out to that beneficiary, whoever you want. But you'll notice here, right, the survivor, that's a fixed amount, right? So for safety, it's 50%. So essentially half of your retirement is going to be eligible for them for lifetime at no cost to you, which is nice. For the miscellaneous members, maybe the new like administrative, it's 25% for survivor continuance. So if that's the case, you'll see that on here because essentially for your survivor after your death, that's that fixed amount that gets paid out to that survivor for their lifetime. But below that, you'll see all the different options as well too. The 100%, 50%, but that all varies in everybody's retirement, so don't really show it. But you can also run different scenarios. Maybe you want to see 6 months later when you do that, 1 year, so on and so forth. But like I was mentioning before, kind of the farther you go out, the less accurate it'll kind of get because there's a lot of things that can change in between now and then as well. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dollar amount, whether you're dead or alive, or survivor get that.
Yeah.
So you can take some from your unmodified
Mm-hmm.
and they get the same way.
Yeah. And all those options are very different. So like he was mentioning, like there's a 100% option, right? So you'll see more of a deduction from your unmodified allowance because you're leaving 100% of your retirement behind, right? And then 50%, half that amount to them. And then that flexible, whatever percentage you kind of do for that beneficiary as well. We don't really cover that because that's what we do on the one-to-ones. We pull up your accounts and do all that for you. But what's nice is that if you are running any scenarios on your account and you're like, I have some questions about it, not entirely sure what this means or what this means for my spouse or domestic partner after I pass, save that scenario on there, give it whatever name that you want. You can put the retirement date on there that you have. So this person retiring at 62, that's what they name it. And so essentially, when you call us for a one-on-one, we can pull up that estimate that you ran and kind of go over those numbers and everything like that, make it more clear for you as well. Because when it comes to retirement, honestly, the option itself is half the battle. Once you kind of know what you want for retirement, the paperwork is going to be very easy after that point. And like I said, never too early to talk about that as well. Now, lastly, I just want to go back on this slide here. The send estimate letter request. Oh. She's coming. Sure.
I think it's more of a comment more than a question, but the survivor continuance, you mentioned 25%, that's only if we pay into Social Security.
Correct. Yeah. And
And
so
we
like,
don't pay into Social
And
Security.
when I was mentioning 25%, there's just like in regards to like certain positions, maybe they don't like contract into the like safety side of things, right? But for you guys, for the most part,
50%.
it's the 50%. Yeah. I just like to mention it in case they have multiple employers or anything like that as well too. So yeah, thank you for that. Now on this page here at the very bottom, when it comes to submitting this letter request, this is that official estimate that I was kind of mentioning before for that industrial disability retirement. If you want more of an accurate, I would say, estimate that goes to our unit, send this letter request, that'll go to them, give them about 30 days for that to be calculated. And essentially they'll generate a letter for you that has the whole letterhead, how they broke down your calculation, how much you'll be making for all those different options as well. The only downside of this letter request is that you're only allowed 2 of them per calendar year. So, if you're just kind of like curious, you just want to see like what next year looks like, submit one of these, you can kind of see what your pension will be. It is limited to about 12 months, right? So if you're doing today's date, you can only go to today's date, 2023 of next year. You can't go 2024 or so on and so forth, right? But it is a good way to see different numbers for you. And you're not committing to retirement when you do those letter requests either. A lot of times people get worried about that. It's like, no, until you submit that application, that's when we make things official for you. But you'll see this member, they've been thinking about retirement clearly because they're doing a lot of different estimates. I always like seeing that when I pull up your account for your appointments, because that just shows me that you've been actively thinking about it, trying to figure out what's going to be the best for you for retirement as well. Now, once we have processed your letter request, you'll see like email alert, text message, anything like that, depending on how you have your notifications set up. But essentially, once you have that estimate letter completed, it'll pop up on your account. So when you click on the retirement tab, click on the retirement estimate calculator, this estimate letter request will be at the very bottom there. And so once you click on that PDF, it'll open up that letter that we generated for you with that whole calculation for your retirement, breaking down everything. Yeah.
With doing the request for investment, can you do more than 2,003 hours on that?
So good question. Do you want to repeat it? Yeah.
On the request on the estimate letter, can you specifically do more than 2,000 hours in sick leave?
Yes and no. I'm going to tell you both versions. On the online version, it'll still limit you on the maximum for sick leave, but on the paper version that you print out, you can put the actual numbers on there. So that's why I always recommend the paper version, just because it allows you to do a little bit more things that the computer lets you do. Unfortunately, we'll fix that eventually at some point, probably late when I retire, but it'll be okay. But great question, yes. So yeah, if you do have more sick leave time, the computer's not letting you do it, print out the estimate request form. That way we can put in the actual numbers and make it a little bit more accurate for you as well. Thank you for that. All right, so next we have go ahead.
So one of the other things kind of that I thought was important for us for this class of having you here is that we talked about on the screen that there were several different options in CalPERS of how you can get your money. You can go unmodified, which means you get the most dollar amount that you can get. But when you pass, your spouse will get half, right? Or you can take a little bit off of the max you can get and your spouse gets the same whether you're dead or alive. That dollar amount can change depending on your income. So if you are a top step captain, BC, even an engineer, that dollar amount may be close to $500 or $600 per month that you're not taking. You may be able to buy a life insurance policy through a broker for $200 a month. And so when you pass, if you pass right after the day you retire, then your spouse, whoever, will get a life insurance policy, which is tax-free, and be able to make up the difference of that 20 or 30% that they would be getting in your pension, which is a planning thing, which is why I want you to look at that 5 to 7 years out right now, because if you're looking to get a life insurance policy at 49, it might be better than if you're 50. And so that's kind of one of these reasons of looking at what benefit you want in your retirement, because insurance may be a better plan for you and go unmodified. And if you happen to live healthy for a long time, you took the most out of your CalPERS pension that you could, because you got the 80% or 90% max that you could. So that was part of this planning part of knowing that there are different options in retirement, how to access your pension. So the CalPERS, the difference is that an insurance policy costs you money now, right? And your CalPERS pension, when you retire, you're just going to get $600 less per month. So whether or not you're willing to spend $200 now per month for a life insurance policy and the tax side of that versus not getting $600 extra per month in PERS, that's all a personal choice, but we just wanted you to have the education to make that decision yourself. And you don't have to make that decision yourself. You just have to have the knowledge to talk to CalPERS or a financial planner so you can be prepared 5 to 7 years out.
No, perfect. Thank you for that. And he makes a great point. That's why I would say retirement itself is very unique. It is a very general thing. It's the same for everybody, but in regards to how much you're going to be making for retirement, it's going to be unique to you and your situation, right? So that's why we as counselors are here to help you with all of that. There's a publication online called Publication 43. It's just your service retirement. It has a kind of a general breakdown of the different options on there. So kind of like what Dustin was talking about, it gives you a little brief description of the difference between those different options, right? Now, in regards to the numbers, that's gonna be very specific to you, right? Which is why we kind of only provide general information in these classes, because each retirement is very unique in that sense. But to give you a basic understanding of the difference between the options. So like Dustin was talking about, 100%, right? You're leaving 100% of your retirement behind to whoever you're naming as your beneficiary and your survivor, right? It gets a little bit more complicated, I would say, because you can have a survivor, but maybe you don't want a beneficiary, or maybe the beneficiary is going to be your child, right? As an example. So your spouse or domestic partner will make that survivor continuance amount, and your child will make that beneficiary amount when you're running those scenarios online. This other option we have is the 100% with allowance increase. Essentially what this one is the same concept where you're leaving 100% of your retirement behind, but if your beneficiary passes before you, you increase your benefit back up to the unmodified allowance. So you're kind of protecting yourself and your retirement in that sense, right? Maybe 5-10 years down the road, you remarry. That's a qualifying event, right? You can change that option for retirement as well too. But that's why it gets a little bit more complicated, I would say, when it comes to the options, because things change very quickly and very differently as well. But what's nice is these options themselves, you're not committing to them until 30 days after your first paycheck for retirement. So say you choose the 50% option where you're making a little bit more money for yourself, still leaving a solid 50% behind to your beneficiary. A month goes by after you turn in your application, you're like, ooh, actually, you know what? I want to do the 100%. I didn't want the 50%. Give us a call. We'll send you the form to change that option, right? But once 30 days has passed, when you get that first paycheck, you're locked in. So can't make any more changes after that. Unless, right? Pro tips for everybody. You come back to work, you reinstate, right? Go back to active duty, come out of retirement. You can re-retire, choose a different option. So that's one option for you. The other thing you could do is, say you just kind of cancel your retirement before it's official. Maybe it's day 29 when you get that first check. You're like, oh, hold on, Sarah, I want to come back to work. Make sure your position's still there, okay? You go back to work, you cancel your retirement, then you can go about your day 1 month and you're like, okay, never mind, I want to retire now. Then you can do that too, right? So there's different ways to kind of undo that mistake, but just reach out to us because that's what we do on the regular type of thing. And so, yeah, if you're looking for, I would say, more information about the options and how they work, schedule one-on-one with us or do that estimate on your MyCalPERS account, save it on there so we can talk to you about it as well. So thank you, Dustin, for bringing that up as well. Go back here. Any online questions at all that we've received? No? Okay. Just want to double check. All right. So let me go back over here. Health is not. So statements. If you ever, like I was mentioning before, if you got the online statement version, but you never changed it to mail, it's all available through your MyCalPERS account. Once you eventually retire as well, any pay stubs that you want to have access to, that'll pop up in this tab here. So you don't have to worry about keeping the pay stubs and the lockbox. It'll be available to you online as well. I know a lot of times people print those out just so they have them. You can do that too. Totally your decision, up to you. Now, in regards to appointments, like I was talking about, talking to us as the counselors, the easiest way is to click on the education tab, then click on appointments, because that'll pop up essentially every regional office within California. You don't have to go to the Sacramento one. You can talk to people in San Diego, pretend like you're on the beach already. Everything's good, right? But let us know what kind of appointment you're looking for, whether that's for service credit. Maybe you have some questions about disability itself. Maybe that industrial kind of sparked a memory like, ooh, maybe that does apply to me. But just let us know what kind of appointment it is so we can block out the allotted time for you. Typically our service retirement, service credit, most appointments these days are about 30 minutes. I know that doesn't seem like a lot of time. We've been talking about retirement for the last hour and a half, right? But 30 minutes is a pretty good block of time. We can get most things completed within that time block. If you need a little bit extra time, that's okay. No pressure. It's all right. Usually with disability, and I would say industrial disability appointments, we usually block out an hour for you, just because there's a lot more stuff to go over, right? We have to tell you what to do with your application, who to talk to about your medical records, so on and so forth, everything like that too. But once you tell us if you want it in person or virtual, or if you just want to filter it by all of them, you'll click on that continue button and it'll pop up all the available appointment times we have for you. I would say nowadays it's a lot better. We have a lot more appointments available, I would say, because we allow virtual appointments too. So we can do a phone call, we can do a Zoom. If you want to see our face, can't promise you we'll be dressed like this on those Zoom appointments, but it's available. So if you want to see someone in their face, you can do a Zoom or a phone appointment. There's a lot more available. But if it is in person, it'll tell you that it's in person in which office that you're looking at. So don't make the unfortunate mistake of scheduling an in-person appointment in San Diego when you're in Sacramento, because those appointments don't transfer as easy. So it's happened. I had one person drive up from Palm Springs the other day thinking they had to come to Sacramento. It's like, no, you could have gone to any of the other 8 offices you passed on the way up here. So, but once you tell us what time slot you want for your appointment, make sure your contact information is up to date, whether that's email or cell phone, because we need both of those in case maybe you don't answer your cell phone, right? We can send you an email to remind you, hey, waiting in that Zoom appointment for you. Just let us know if you need to reschedule, type of thing. And once you have that, you'll click on that submit button, come in here, and it'll have that appointment blocked out for you. We know lives come into play, work sometimes get in the way as well too. If you need to reschedule, just click on that reschedule button. Or if you just don't want to talk to us, you're not feeling it, you can cancel the appointment as well. Now, like I was talking about before, right? We have all of these different offices in California. So if you are on vacation, say you're down in LA time, you can go to San Bernardino, you can go to Orange, you can go to Glendale as well too. We have a lot of different offices throughout California. Sacramento is just kind of the main one, I would say, north of here, right? So unfortunately, we have a lot of people that drive from like the very border of California all the way down to Sacramento. So those ones, we take a little bit more time because they spent a lot of time getting to us as well. We don't want them feeling like they didn't get their money's worth, I would say, especially with gas being expensive as it is. But like I was mentioning, all these different offices available to you, all of the counselors as well. So don't feel like you're asking silly questions during your appointment. That's what we're here for. There is no silly questions. It can be as wacky as it needs to be, but if it's so wacky that we don't know, we're gonna have to send a little, what we call a workflow over to someone in the unit that has probably a little bit more knowledge, someone that's probably been around here a lot longer, right? Now, all of you here, you've already attended the class, so you're ahead of, I would say, 45% of the retirees in California, because like you see, there's a lot of information that goes to retirement, right? So you taking the time out of your day to come to this, you're setting yourself ahead just one step extra towards that finish line for retirement, right? The next thing you want to do is schedule an appointment with us, just so we can go into more details, see how you're looking, even if it's 10, 15, maybe 20 years down the road. Let's just take a look, see how everything's cooking for retirement, right? The next is if you are turning in any forms to us, especially for the in-person appointments, just make sure you have them filled out to the best of your ability, just so we can make sure we're not like wasting your time at the appointment, just helping you write in stuff and everything like that. If you have a retirement estimate and you have that official letter, just make sure you bring that to your appointment so we can go over that with you as well. We can usually pull it up on your account, so don't freak out too much if you don't bring it with you. And then I think this is probably the most important bullet point, write down your questions. You'd be surprised how many times people come up to our window and they're like, and they just kind of sit there. Like you can see, like they have all these questions, but they don't know how to articulate it. So write that down. You'd be surprised how many times one question will lead into 5 other questions, right? But it's a good thing, it gives us a basis for what we need to cover during your appointment as well. Okay, I know I've been talking for a long time, but ending a little bit early, which is nice for you guys. You can stretch out your legs, get a little bit of coffee, all that as well too. Hopefully nobody fell asleep online there, okay? Are you still paying attention? We're almost done. So the next steps I want you to do, I sent Alicia the online booklet for this whole class, but like I was mentioning, you can find all this information from our lovely website as well too. You can review all that material. If that sparks up some questions for you, give us a holler, schedule an appointment. We'll help you out with that. If you haven't done so already, definitely register in my Calibers account. Like I was saying, that's the bread and butter. It'll help you with everything related to your retirement. It only takes about, I would say, 5 to 15 minutes tops, because you have to answer some security questions in case you forget that, crazy password you created as well. Use the retirement estimate calculator, save those estimates that you do so we can help you even further with that. Look into your service credit purchases, right? So if you are thinking one of those little materials that we covered about service prior to membership, redeposit, maybe that military service credit time, reach out to us so we can go over that, give you the proper forms to fill out as well to walk you through that process through your MyCalPERS account. And I can't stress this enough, set up your power of attorney if you haven't done it already. I know I said it's better to have and not need versus need and not have. It's peace of mind for you guys. Something happens to you, you don't have to worry about it. And then lastly, like Dustin was talking about, mute your financial person. I am not your financial presenter today. Okay, that's a whole nother class. I'm sure they're going to go over that with you later on as well. And your tax professional, CPA, CEA, whoever you go to, H&R Block, that's your person. Bring them some donuts, maybe bribe them a little bit. Like, hey, if I'm making this much for retirement, what's actually my take home with taxes and everything like that? Especially if you move out of California, make sure you're not paying California taxes for no reason. I had someone earlier this year. They moved out of California 3 years ago, never told us they've been paying California taxes for no reason. So don't do that. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I saw the head. Yeah, So, but yeah, so in summary, right? We already talked about the different sources, 457s, 401ks, IRAs, your pension, right? Those are going to be your kind of retirement income sources going into retirement. So it's not just your CalPERS. Probably know maybe you're retiring and then starting your own business, right? That's another source of income for you as well. How to calculate your retirement estimate, log in through your MyCalPERS account or the cheat code, download that form, print it out so you can put all your sick leave time on there as well too. How to increase your retirement, that's the service credit purchase, the sick leave conversion, just working longer in general, kind of maxing out your retirement formula for yourself as well. And then different options for leaving your employer, whether that's going to be, doing the redeposit or withdrawal or rollover, or you just leave your contributions in there, let it grow a little bit longer, then withdraw it at that point too. Pro tip, maximum age 72. That's when you have to withdraw your contributions for any type of retirement account. So if you don't ever pull out your money, we're going to start sending you a lot of letters being like, you have money to take, please tell us where to send this money to. We won't let it just go to waste. And then lastly, your MyCalPERS account and all the different web resources. There we go. So just calpers.ca.gov. Very easy. If you Google CalPERS, it'll pop up that page for you as well too. But your MyCalPERS account is going to be the best place for you to see all the information available to you for your retirement. So that kind of concludes the class. I just want to thank everybody for attending. I'm going to check with my IT guys. Any questions at all that came through or? Nope. Okay. Oh, easy peasy.